Alright, so I'm going to talk about my Urza Lord High Artificer deck. Urza, or this art that I have for him, is a 2 generic, 2 blue, 1/4 human artificer, with whenever he enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 construct token with this token gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Then tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue. Keep in mind you can do this at instant speed, and pay 5, also at instant speed, to shuffle your deck, then exile the top card until end of turn. You may play that card without paying its mana value. So at face value, what we were trying to do with Urza is play a lot of free artifacts, play a lot of artifacts to get a lot of mana, and, threaten combat damage with our construct token that gets +1/+1 for each artifact we control. And with that mana, we can activate Urza. So a lot of the ways that a lot of people like to build Urza is a Staxy combo commander with a lot of counter spells and a lot of ways to utilize those artifacts. And I am no different because that is how I built them. We're running 1 Planeswalker in the deck with Narset Part or Veils to make it so that each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. And the -2 is actually pretty helpful because a lot of our deck is artifacts, as you'll see. We're on Emery for Graveyard Recursion. We're playing Ethereum Sculptor to make artifacts cost 1 less, very strong effect in Urza. Forensic Gadgeteer, I've been very impressed with this card recently because of just how much it goes in an Urza deck. It does everything that an Urza deck wants, and it makes artifacts to tap for mana, and with the artifacts that you play, and you can use those artifacts to draw cards. Also, its last ability is part of an infinite combo with Basalt Monolith to make us infinite mana. Thunder Inspector, another artifact cost reducer. Hullbreaker Horror for, your artifact infinite mana lines. You can return 2 free artifacts to your hand. You can play a free artifact, tap 1 for mana, return the other one, and repeat this loop for infinite blue mana. And then once you have infinite blue mana, you can start returning Urza to your hand over and over again, then replay Urza to make infinite construct tokens. Also, the flash is nice, that this can't be countered is nice, the fact that this can return spells to their hand is nice. Hydroelectric Specimen is a land that we can pay 3 life. If we don't, we can make it enter tapped. But it is also a way to change the target of a target instant or sorcery, so if somebody points removal at Urza, we can change it with our land. Very nice. Free artifact and an Ornithopter, Phyrexian Walker. Riddlesmith, a way to filter through our decks when artifacts enter. Thought Monitor, affinity for artifacts, so it costs 1 less for each artifact we control. And it's a nice little body that draws us 2 cards. Tidesprout Tyrant essentially does the same thing as Hullbreaker Horror, but it can bounce our opponent's lands. Tribute Mage can find any artifact in our deck that costs 2 or less. We are running all 3 of the mages. Not the new one that came out from Aetherdrift, though. Trinket Mage. We're running a Vidalcan Archmage that says whenever you play an artifact, draw a card. Very strong in Urza. Now we're onto our artifact package. So we've got lots of ways to have free artifacts and cheap artifacts that either find us lands sometimes, draw us cards, or do something useful at its base value of being 1. Aether Spellbomb is a way to return a creature to their hand, or pay 1 just to sacrifice it to draw a card. Aether Flux Reservoir, another really good win condition in our deck. From casting all of our spells and playing all of our artifacts, we can gain infinite life and deal infinite damage. Alchemist Vial, just a 2-mana artifact, draw a card. Arcane Signet as ramp, Basalt Monolith as ramp, or a infinite combo. Codex Shredder has a different purpose in the deck than a lot of other Codex Shredders decks. We can pay 5 to sacrifice it to return a card from our graveyard to your hand. Already amazing. Get back some of the stuff that we need. But we can also, with our Hullbreaker Horror, return this to our hand, replay it, tap it to mill out all of our opponents. Crawl Space, no more than 2 creatures can attack you each combat. Keep in mind, we can tap all of these artifacts for mana whenever we want. Everflowing Chalice, a free artifact or ramp. Same with Forestone, ramp. Fountainport Bell, I've been really impressed with this artifact. 1 mana artifact, 5-cent card from Blueburrow. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, put it on top, and then you can pay 1 to sacrifice it, draw a card. Then we've got Grafdigger's Cage. Creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. You have to be careful with this because you won't be able to cast creatures from activating Urza, but this card shuts down so many decks. And it is 1 mana, and it's an artifact. It's really good. We have Herbal Poultice, which is another free artifact. We can, regenerate Urza if it gets killed. Howling Mine. At the beginning of each player's draw step, if Howling Mine is untapped, that player draws an additional card. So we can tap Howling Mine on our opponent's draw turn to make it so that only we get the extra card draw. Acre Wellspring draws a card. Isochron Scepter has an infinite combo with Dramatic Reversal. It says 2 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. So we do Dramatic Reversal. Dramatic Reversal is 1 and a blue for an instant that says untap all non-land permanents you control. So then Isochron Scepter says you can pay 2 to tap it and then cast the copy of the exile card that you imprinted with it without paying its mana cost. So with Urza, Isochron Scepter, and Dramatic Reversal, we essentially get infinite blue mana. If we have some other artifacts we can tap. Mindstone for ramp, Mishra's Bauble, a really good free artifact, also synergizes with Codex Shredder. Prismatic Lens, ramp, Sapphire Medallion, of course goes in Urza. Blue spells you control, 1 less to cast. We are a blue deck. We like artifacts, perfect. Soul Ring, good card. Static Orb, as long as it's untapped. Players can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. This card fucks. This card is really good. We can turn it off before it gets to our turn, and it does not affect us. And even if it did, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal because we are very, very, very resilient, fast combo deck. Storage Matrix basically does the same thing as Static Orb, but the player gets to choose. Swiftfoot Boots, of course, goes in Urza. We have to protect our commander. Our commander is a kill-on-sight commander. People want to kill it. They know how powerful this deck is. And I've been playing this deck for about 6 years. This Urza just keeps getting better as time goes on. Thought Vessel, nice, no maximum hand size. Some ramp. Dormouse Crypt to fuck with those graveyard stacks. Free artifact. Torpor Orb, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Can stop a lot of infinite combos. And also is just a good artifact. Unwinding Clock. This card is always going to be good in Urza no matter what. Untap all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step. So what that means is we have all of our mana up for our counter spells, our instants, our Urza activations, and even our construct or any artifact creatures we have will get untapped. Like this is every artifact, including our artifact lands. This is a really good card. I guess there's enough. Winter Orb. This is the card that the infamous Urza decks kind of run. And I'm no different. I am one of those people. But it makes it so that no player may untap more than 1 land during his or her untap step. This got errata to say if it's untapped. So we can turn it off during our turn. And even if we don't care because most of our mana comes from our artifacts. Now we're on to the instant package. An offer you can't refuse. Counterspell, counterspell, counterspell. Cyclonic Rift, return target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand, and then Overload to, return everything that our opponents control to their hand. Dramatic Reversal we already talked about, but I will say, even if you don't have the combo, this will untap all of your artifacts for a big influx of mana, because you can float it. Mana Drain is a counterspell with Transmute, which means you can discard it, search your library for a card with the same mana value as this card, which is 2, put into your hand for 3 mana at an uncounterable instant speed. Mystical Tutor can search your deck for any instant or sorcery, put it on top. Narset's Reversal does have an infinite combo in this deck with an extra turn spell, and Isochron Scepter, if we have enough mana, we can just get infinite turns that way, also a counterspell. Paradoxical Outcome, if we return any number of target non-land, non-token permanents you control to their owner's hand, and then draw a card for each card returned to our hand this way. So this will essentially be a 4 mana, draw 10, draw 8, draw 7, and then replay those artifacts that cost 1 less. On ETB draws a card. This is a good way to storm off. Pongify destroys a creature. Pull from Tomorrow to just a big X spell with all of our artifact mana. Reality Shift, some more removal. Counterspell. Work of Invention is an artifact tutor. Fabricate is an artifact tutor. An extra turn spell that I talked about that can bounce something. You could also play other extra turn spells in this deck, such as Time Warp, anything else if you would like. Reshape is a really good way to just tutor out an artifact onto the battlefield. Solve the Equation to search our deck for an artifact tutor, usually. an extra turn spell, usually. But it can search your deck for an instant or sorcery card, put it straight into our hand. And now we're on to our enchantments. Back to basics, we're a monocolor deck, so people do not really, we don't really get affected by this, but people will. It says non-basic lands don't untap during the controller's untap step. We are not really running a lot of non-basic lands. Mirrored and Besieged. This is a really, really interesting card because it's a win con, usually both of the times, but when it enters the battlefield, choose Mirror and a Phyrexian. Mirror it whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 artifact creature, usually what we, do, because those 1/1s are going to create us a lot of mana. And the Phyrexian, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then, if there are 15 or more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. I have only ever won with the backside twice, and it's very situational, so if you're going to play this card, usually choose Mirren. Heuristic Study, of course, draws us a lot of cards. Now we are on to the land package that I included. Now, this is pretty outdated, I have included some other lands, but you could, meddle with whatever you so choose. These are just the lands that I had lying around. Arcway of Innovation, just good if Urza's not out. Blast Zone, always going to be good. Board Wipe on a land. Castle Vantress, there's a Scry land. And then we got Islands and Lonely Sandbar, a Cycle land. Mystic Sanctuary, this is a very, very good card. When it enters the battlefield tapped, unless you control 3 or more other islands, and when it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put the instant or sorcery card from your library on top of your deck. I will say if you run fetch lands, this will still work. You can still fetch this out because it's a type-blind island, but I'm not that crazy. Rogue's Passage can make our construct token unblockable. Also, if we have those infinite power constructs from bouncing Urza over and over again, we can just make one of them unblockable and win the game that way. Sanctum of Eternity, I don't know why this card's been going up so much in price, but it can essentially save our Urza from a Kenrith's transformation or something that makes our commander lose all of our abilities by just bouncing them back to our hand. And recasting Urza from our hand usually is a benefit because, we get the ETB trigger of getting another construct. And then Seat of the Synod is an artifact land. Very good and useful. You can always find it with Fabricate, artifact tutors, artifact payoffs like this. Zalfir and Void is just to round out the deck. It's a land, enters, scries 1. Last thing I'll say is about this land specifically, while I'm not using the Surveil ones, is you kind of want the cards in your deck, not in the graveyard, so you can hit them with Urza. So all in all, we are a pretty blue and colorless heavy deck, obviously. We have 34 artifacts, 15 instants, 35 lands, a semi-low land count, and 3 enchantments, 15 creatures, 1 planeswalker, and 4 sorceries. This deck runs, quite a different tokens, but I will say this deck is a little bit more on the expensive side. It's a bracket 4, and it's definitely a really good deck to get into higher power Magic. Urza's always been a super big pet card of mine. I love Urza. I love its playstyle. I love mono blue. And yeah, that's about it. Urza's Urza, and yeah.